Okay, let's look at part 2 of Federalist number 5 by John Jay. Sorry, there's a reflection of light in my glass on my glasses, so sorry about that. It's the second paragraph. It's very short. It was remarked in the preceding paper, in the last paper, in the last Federalist. We talked about it, that weakness and division at home would invite dangers from abroad. The weaker and disunited you are at home on this continent between the 13 states, we will be inviting other countries to come and maybe invade us, maybe take advantage of us, maybe take our resources, divide us, and that nothing would tend more to secure us from them than union. So a union will secure our prosperity, our liberty, our well-being, strength and good government within ourselves. So union, strength, good government. We combine those three, we should be safe. We should be happy. Excuse me. This subject is copious and cannot easily be exhausted. Copious means it's so large. It's something that cannot be easily exhausted. You can't easily explain it. You have to go in different parts because it's copious. And take your time and try to go through different parts and explain it and consider it, go over it. The next paragraph says, the history of Great Britain is the one with which we are in general the best acquainted, and it gives us many useful lessons. It says, of course, because our heritage is a British Anglo-American heritage, we're very familiar with British history, what's happened to them, and especially at this time, one of the historians talks about 5 or 6 major books came out about the British history. One of them is a multi-volume work by David Hume. And we will hear more about Hume later on. He was a Scottish philosopher, very well known to Americans, a great writer, and we'll talk about him some more. So he was one of the handful of historians who wrote multi-volume histories of Great Britain. So John Jay says, we know British history. Let's reflect on it. Let's think about it. Let's see what happened. We may profit by their experience. Oh, this is extremely important. We may profit by their experience without paying the price which it cost them. We don't have to pay the same price, go through the same difficulties that British have. They have shown us a lesson. We can just read their history and learn from it. Remember, this is what we're doing. We're learning about American civilization, American history, and how federalism has shaped it and it has been shaped, and in the future other federal systems, so that in 3 to 5 generations we'll hopefully get our act together and learn, just like Jay says, without paying the price which it cost them, without paying the price that all these countries have had to pay, without paying the price like the American Civil War. Yeah, so it's very important that we learn from this experience, just like John Jay is saying. We should learn from the British. We're not stupid. We don't want to make the same mistake over and over. Although it seems obvious to common sense that the people of such an island, should be but one nation, common sense says you live in an island. You got to be one nation. Yet we find that they were for ages divided into three, and those three were almost constantly embroiled in quarrels and wars with one another. You would think that they would be united. They live in an island. But no, when you look at their history, they were divided into three: England, Scotland, Wales, and then on the other side you have Ireland, and they're constantly at war with each other. Just, this is crazy. Notwithstanding their true interest with respect to the continental nations was really the same, yet by the arts and policy and practices of those nations, their mutual jealousies were perpetually kept inflamed. And for a long series of years, they were far more inconvenient and troublesome than they were useful in assisting to each other. So these three groups were always pushed around or lied to or manipulated by all these other powers, continental powers, to keep them at war with each other, so that the continental powers, the countries that were on the continent of Europe, could take advantage of these three parts. And foolishly they fell for it. Instead of uniting, they had to wait till 1706. For hundreds of years they were at war with each other. So in the future, I think in a few generations, people will look at this, and instead of saying, you would think that they would unite, they're living in on an island, common sense says that they should unite. In a few generations, our descendants will look back and say, well, these people lived on an island. This island is called planet Earth. Everything is interconnected. You damage one area, other places are damaged. So we are all interconnected. We have the same nervous system. We think we don't, but we do. Life is interconnected. We are part of life out there. So in a few generations, people will look back and say, why were they so foolish? Why did they constantly war against one another? Why did they constantly spend so much money on war machinery, on creating distrust, propaganda? So it's a lesson for us. So outside powers kept their jealousies, their distrust of one another inflamed. Just like every once in a while, they would set fire to these passions. They would set these people against one another. Now the next paragraph says, should the people of America divide themselves into 3 or 4 nations, would not the same thing happen? Those people who say, come and make 3 or 4 confederacies out of these 13 states, aren't they telling you the same foolish thing that the British did for centuries, being divided? Would not similar jealousies arise and be in like manner cherished? Wouldn't we, if we were divided into 3 or 4 parts, wouldn't we start distrusting one another? And the same